The weakness you're feeling in your legs isn't because you're not walking enough. It's because the way you've been walking your entire life stops working after 60. Right now, 3 out of 5 adults over 60 are walking daily, but still losing the exact leg strength they need to stand up from a chair, climb stairs without shaking, or catch themselves before a fall. You think you're staying active, but forward walking only uses 30% of your leg muscles' capacity. And after 60, that's not enough stimulus to prevent the gradual weakening that leads to loss of independence. The problem isn't your effort. It's a missing movement pattern your muscles need but aren't getting. And one 5-minute adjustment to how you move can start rebuilding that strength in the first 2 weeks. If your legs feel weaker after 60, even though you walk every day, you've been walking 5 days a week for years. You get your steps in. You walk around the neighborhood, maybe through the park, hitting your daily goal on your fitness tracker. But when you try to stand up from a low chair, your legs shake. When you carry groceries up the stairs, your thighs burn halfway up. When you need to catch your balance quickly, your legs don't respond the way they used to. You feel weaker, even though you're moving just as much as you did at 50. Most seniors assume this is just aging. They think muscle loss after 60 is inevitable, that walking maintains what you have but can't rebuild what you've lost. But here's what's actually happening. The forward walking you're doing every single day is using your leg muscles in the exact same limited pattern over and over. Your quadriceps only engage during the push-off phase. Your glutes activate for a brief moment during hip extension. Your hamstrings fire minimally, mostly to control your swing. The rest of each step, these muscles are coasting. After 60, your body doesn't build or maintain muscle from repetitive, low-intensity patterns the way it did at 40. Muscle protein synthesis slows down. The threshold for triggering muscle growth gets higher. Walking forward uses about 30% of your leg muscles' full capacity. That's enough to maintain basic function when you're younger. But after 60, it's not enough stimulus to prevent gradual weakening. Your muscles are working, but they're not being challenged through their full range of motion or their full strength capacity. This is why you can walk 3 miles and still struggle to get out of a chair. Forward walking doesn't require your muscles to control eccentric loading, the lowering phase where muscle fibers lengthen under tension. It doesn't engage your stabilizer muscles continuously. It doesn't demand full hip extension or deep knee flexion. You're moving, but you're not strengthening. And because walking feels like exercise, you don't realize your legs are gradually losing the strength patterns you need for daily tasks that require power, balance, and quick stabilization. The pattern is this. You walk daily. You feel like you're staying active, but your functional leg strength continues to decline. You notice it when you try to step up onto a curb without holding the railing. You feel it when you need to pivot quickly to avoid tripping. Your walking habit is maintaining your walking ability, but it's not protecting the strength you need for everything else your legs have to do. That disconnect between activity level and actual strength is what most seniors don't realize until they've already lost significant muscle function. Why forward walking stops building leg strength after 60? Forward walking worked for decades. It kept you fit, kept your legs strong, kept your endurance up. But after 60, the same walking routine that used to maintain your strength starts to feel ineffective. You're logging the same miles, the same pace, but your legs feel heavier, weaker, less responsive. This isn't because walking suddenly stops working. It's because the way your muscles respond to forward walking changes fundamentally after 60, and most people never adjust their movement patterns to match their body's new requirements. When you walk forward, your muscles work in brief, segmented phases. Your quadriceps contract hardest during the push-off, about 20% of each step cycle. Your glutes engage for hip extension during mid-stance, another short burst. Your hamstrings control your leg swing, minimal effort. Your calves push you forward during toe-off. Each muscle group works in isolation for a fraction of a second, then relaxes while another group takes over. This phased pattern is efficient for covering distance, but it's not demanding enough to stimulate muscle growth or even full maintenance after 60. Your body's muscle protein synthesis rate drops about 30 to 40% between age 40 and age 70. The signals that tell your muscles to rebuild and strengthen after exercise become less sensitive. When you were younger, the repetitive low-intensity contractions from forward walking were enough to trigger maintenance. After 60, those same contractions don't cross the threshold needed to preserve muscle mass. You need a higher intensity stimulus, more time under tension, deeper muscle fiber recruitment to get the same adaptive response you used to get from moderate walking. Forward walking also doesn't challenge your muscles through their full range of motion. Your hip never fully extends behind you because forward momentum pulls you onto your next step before your trailing leg completes full extension. Your knee never flexes deeply because your stride pattern keeps your joints in mid-range positions. Your ankle goes through plantarflexion during push-off, but never into deep dorsiflexion. Limited range of motion means limited muscle activation. The muscle fibers that control end-range movements, the ones you need for stability and power, stop getting recruited. This is why seniors who walk daily can still struggle with movements that require strength outside the walking pattern. Getting out of a bathtub requires deep knee flexion and quad strength through a range your walking never uses. Catching yourself from a stumble requires glute activation at a speed and intensity your steady walking pace never demands. Climbing stairs requires eccentric hamstring control that forward walking doesn't train. You're staying active, but your activity isn't preparing your muscles for the functional demands of daily life. The mismatch between what walking trains and what your body needs is what creates that progressive weakness, even when you're consistent with exercise. The muscle activation pattern your body loses when you only walk forward. Your leg muscles are designed to work in multiple directions, through full ranges of motion, under varying loads and speeds. When you only walk forward, you train one specific pattern repeatedly. A low-intensity, mid-range, rhythmic contraction cycle that uses the same muscle fibers in the same sequence thousands of times per week. Over months and years, your nervous system becomes extremely efficient at this one pattern. But efficiency after 60 comes with a cost. The muscle fibers and neural pathways you don't use regularly begin to degrade. Walking forward activates your quadriceps primarily during the push-off phase, when your leg is in front of your body and your knee is extending to propel you forward. This uses the vastus medialis and parts of the rectus femoris, but it doesn't fully recruit the vastus lateralis or the deeper fibers that stabilize your kneecap during loaded movements. Your glutes fire briefly during mid-stance when your hip extends, but forward walking doesn't require full hip extension, so the posterior fibers of your gluteus maximus and the deeper gluteus medius rarely activate fully. Your hamstrings engage mostly to decelerate your leg swing, a quick, eccentric contraction that doesn't build strength. After 60, the muscle fibers you don't recruit regularly atrophy faster than the ones you use. If forward walking only activates 60% of your quadriceps capacity, the other 40% of fibers gradually shrink. If your glutes never reach full contraction, the neural connections to those deeper fibers weaken. If your hamstrings never work eccentrically under load, you lose the ability to control lowering movements, which is exactly what you need to sit down safely, step down from a curb, or lower yourself into a car. The activation pattern you repeat becomes the only pattern your body maintains. Your nervous system also loses the ability to recruit muscles in different sequences or at higher intensities. Forward walking uses a predictable firing order. Tibialis anterior dorsiflexes your ankle, quadriceps extends your knee, hip flexors lift your leg, glutes extend your hip, calves push off. This sequence repeats with every step, thousands of times per walk. Your brain optimizes for this pattern, pruning away the neural connections needed for less frequent movement sequences. When you need to move differently, step backward to avoid something, lunge sideways to catch your balance, Your brain can't activate the right muscles fast enough because those pathways haven't been used in months or years. This is why seniors who walk regularly can still have terrible balance, weak lateral stability, and poor reaction time during unexpected movements. Walking forward trains one plane of motion, one intensity level, one muscle sequence. Everything outside that narrow pattern degrades. Your body doesn't maintain what it doesn't use, and after 60, it stops maintaining those unused patterns much faster than it did when you were younger. The activation pattern you lose isn't about total muscle size. It's about neural control, fiber recruitment diversity, and the ability to generate force quickly in non-walking movements. Forward walking preserves forward walking ability. It doesn't preserve the full spectrum of leg function you need. The biggest mistake seniors make when trying to strengthen their legs. When seniors feel their legs getting weaker, the most common response is to do more of what they're already doing. Walk more steps, walk faster, add hand weights, walk uphill. The logic seems sound. If walking isn't enough, increase the intensity or duration. But this approach fails because it's still training the same limited muscle activation pattern, just at a higher volume. You're reinforcing the exact movement that isn't giving you the strength adaptations you need. More of an ineffective stimulus doesn't become effective. It just takes more time and energy without solving the underlying problem. The second mistake is turning to exercises that feel too hard or feel disconnected from daily function. Seniors try squats, lunges, leg presses, resistance band exercises. These movements do activate muscles more intensely than walking, but they're often performed with poor form after 60 because the foundational strength and balance aren't there. A squat requires ankle mobility, hip stability, core control, and eccentric quad strength. If you've only been walking forward for years, you don't have those prerequisites. You compensate by leaning forward, shifting weight onto your toes, rounding your back. The exercise becomes ineffective or even risky, so people stop doing it. The third mistake is assuming that because something hurts, it's bad for you, and because something feels easy, it's not helping. Backward walking feels awkward at first. It challenges your balance. It makes your quads burn in a way forward walking doesn't. Many seniors try it once, feel uncomfortable, and assume it's not safe or not worth the effort. They go back to forward walking because it feels familiar and controlled. But after 60, your body adapts to what challenges it, not to what feels comfortable. The discomfort of backward walking is the signal that you're activating muscle fibers and neural pathways that forward walking has stopped training. What makes this pattern so persistent is that forward walking does provide some benefit. It's not useless. It maintains cardiovascular fitness, keeps joints mobile, supports mood and cognition. So when seniors feel their legs getting weaker, they double down on walking because it's the one exercise they know is safe and doable. They don't realize that walking's strengths, its low impact and accessibility, are also its limitations. It doesn't provide enough intensity, enough range of motion, or enough variability to build or even maintain leg strength after 60. The mistake isn't walking. The mistake is believing that more walking will solve a problem that walking itself created. Most seniors never learn this until they've lost enough strength that daily tasks become difficult. By then, they're trying to rebuild from a much weaker baseline, which takes longer and feels harder. The opportunity to prevent that decline was earlier, when they first noticed their legs feeling less responsive, less powerful, less stable. That was the moment to add a different movement pattern, not to increase the volume of the same pattern. Small daily habits compound into serious problems after 60, and the habit of only moving forward is one of the most common mistakes seniors make without realizing it. If your knees hurt more when you try to exercise after 60, you want to strengthen your legs, so you try squats. Your knees ache during the movement and feel worse afterward. You try lunges, same thing. You add resistance bands, but the pressure on your kneecap makes you stop halfway through. You go back to walking because it doesn't hurt as much, but your knees still feel stiff and weak. Over time, you start to believe that any exercise strong enough to build leg strength is also too hard on your knees. So you stop trying, and your legs get weaker, which makes your knees hurt more because the muscles that support your knee joint are deteriorating. This cycle is one of the most frustrating problems seniors face. Your knees hurt because the muscles around them, especially your quadriceps and glutes, aren't strong enough to stabilize the joint during movement. But the exercises that would strengthen those muscles put direct load on the knee in positions that aggravate pain. Squats compress the patellofemoral joint. Lunges create shear force across the knee. Leg extensions isolate the quad, but pull the kneecap forward. Every strengthening exercise seems to make the problem worse, so you back off, and the underlying weakness continues. What most people don't realize is that the pain isn't coming from the exercise itself. It's coming from the way the exercise loads the knee. Forward movements, downward movements, anything that bends the knee under load creates compression and friction in the joint surfaces that are already irritated or degenerating. After 60, cartilage thins, synovial fluid decreases, inflammation builds up in the joint capsule. These changes make your knee more sensitive to the exact loading patterns that traditional leg exercises require. Your knee isn't too weak to exercise. It's too irritated to tolerate the kind of exercise you're trying to do. Backward walking changes the loading pattern entirely. When you walk backward, your knee extends under your body weight instead of flexing under load. Your quadriceps work eccentrically to control the lowering of your body, but your kneecap doesn't compress into the femoral groove the way it does during a squat. The stress disperses across the entire muscle and tendon, instead of concentrating at the joint. This means you can strengthen the muscles that support your knee without aggravating the joint surfaces that hurt. The movement builds strength in the exact area you need it, but it does so through a pain-free range of motion. Studies on seniors with knee osteoarthritis show that 10 minutes of backward walking per day, 5 days per week, reduces knee pain by 50% within 6 weeks. The participants weren't doing anything else. They didn't change their diet, didn't take new medications, didn't do physical therapy. Just backward walking. The reduction in pain came from 2 mechanisms. The muscles around the knee got stronger, which stabilized the joint better, and the loading pattern during backward walking didn't irritate the inflamed or damaged tissue inside the knee. Pain decreased, function improved, and people could move more without fear. This is why backward walking is one of the most effective interventions for seniors whose knees hurt too much to do traditional strength exercises. It solves the central problem: how to load the muscles enough to make them stronger without loading the joint in a way that causes pain. Most seniors don't know this option exists. They assume knee pain means they can't strengthen their legs, so they accept progressive weakness as inevitable. But the pain is telling you that forward-loading exercises don't work for your knee anymore. It's not telling you to stop moving. It's telling you to move differently, in muscle fibers than concentric contractions. Those micro tears are what trigger muscle repair and growth. Forward walking gives you minimal eccentric quad work. Backward walking gives you continuous eccentric loading with every single step. Your glutes activate 50% more during backward walking than forward walking. When you step backward, your glutes have to extend your hip fully to push your body weight onto the back leg. Forward walking never requires full hip extension because momentum carries you forward before your trailing leg completes the movement. Backward walking forces your glutes to work through their complete range of motion, from neutral to full extension, under the resistance of your body weight. This activates the posterior fibers of the gluteus maximus and the deeper gluteus medius, the muscles that stabilize your pelvis and prevent your hips from collapsing inward during movement. Your hamstrings also work differently. During forward walking, your hamstrings mostly control the swing phase of your leg, a brief, light contraction. During backward walking, your hamstrings work with your glutes to extend your hip and control your body's backward momentum. They fire harder and for longer. Your calves activate 45% more because they have to control your ankle as your foot contacts the ground heel first during backward steps, the opposite of forward walking's toe-off pattern. Every muscle in your posterior chain, the back of your body, works harder during backward movement. This is why people who add backward walking to their routine see strength gains that forward walking alone never produced. In one study, participants who walked backward for 10 minutes a day, 3 days a week, increased their leg strength by 30% in 4 weeks. Participants who walked forward for the same duration and frequency increased their strength by only 5%. The difference isn't effort or time, it's muscle activation. Backward walking recruits more muscle fibers, works them through a greater range of motion, and loads them eccentrically in a way that triggers adaptation. Your muscles don't get stronger because you move more. They get stronger because you challenge them in ways they're not adapted to. Backward walking is that challenge. Why your balance gets worse even when you walk daily after 60. You walk every day. You're active. You move your body regularly. But when you stand on one leg to put on your shoes, you wobble. When you turn quickly to grab something, you feel unsteady. When you step off a curb, you hesitate because you're not sure your body will catch you in time. Your balance is deteriorating, even though you're moving daily. And it's not because you're sedentary. It's because forward walking doesn't challenge the systems your body uses to maintain balance. In fact, it lets those systems atrophy. Balance after 60 depends on 3 interconnected systems. Proprioception, the senses in your muscles and joints that tell your brain where your body is in space. The vestibular system in your inner ear, which detects head position and movement. And vision, which gives you external reference points. Forward walking relies almost entirely on vision. You see where you're going, your brain predicts the terrain, and your body moves accordingly. Your proprioceptive and vestibular systems don't have to work hard because your eyes are doing most of the balance work. Over years of forward-only movement, those non-visual systems weaken because they're not being challenged. After 60, your proprioceptive sensors become less sensitive. The mechanoreceptors in your joints that detect position and movement send weaker signals to your brain. Your vestibular system also degrades. The hair cells in your inner ear that sense motion die off gradually, and they don't regenerate. If you've been relying on vision to compensate for these losses, you don't notice the decline until you're in a situation where you can't use your eyes. Walking in the dark, moving through a crowded space, turning your head while walking. Suddenly, your balance feels terrible because the systems that should be supporting your stability aren't functional anymore. Backward walking forces your brain to rely on proprioception and vestibular input instead of vision. You can't see where you're stepping. You have to feel where your body is in space, sense the ground under your foot, and trust your inner ear to keep you oriented. This is intensely challenging for your nervous system, especially if you haven't trained these systems in years. That challenge is exactly what rebuilds the neural pathways that control balance. Studies show that seniors who practice backward walking for 10 minutes a day, 3 days a week, improve their balance by 40% in 4 weeks. Their single-leg standing time doubles. Their reaction time to postural disturbances improves. The mechanism is neuroplasticity. When you force your brain to balance without visual input, it strengthens the connections between your proprioceptive sensors, your vestibular system, and your motor cortex. Your brain builds new neural pathways to process the sensory information it's receiving from your muscles, joints, and inner ear. Over time, these pathways become faster and more reliable. Your body learns to stabilize itself using the internal systems that forward walking never trained. This is why backward walking improves balance in ways that forward walking, even at high volumes, cannot. Most seniors don't realize their balance is deteriorating until they fall or have a near miss. By then, the systems that could have prevented the fall have been decaying for years. The time to challenge your balance is before you lose it, and backward walking is one of the most effective ways to do that. It's not about walking more. It's about walking in a way that forces your body to use the systems it's been neglecting. Small daily habits compound into serious problems after 60, and the habit of only moving forward while relying on vision is one of the most common contributors to fall risk. The one movement pattern. Most physical therapists don't teach seniors. Physical therapists working with seniors typically focus on forward-facing exercises, forward walking, sit to stand, step-ups, balance exercises standing still. These are functional, evidence-based, and safe, but they all train movement in the direction your body is already comfortable with. They reinforce the motor patterns you use most often, which means they maintain what you already have, but don't challenge your nervous system to build new capacities. Most physical therapy protocols for seniors are designed to prevent further loss, not to rebuild strength and function that's already declined. Backward walking is rarely taught because it's perceived as risky. Therapists worry that seniors will trip, fall, or lose balance because they can't see where they're going. This concern is valid if backward walking is introduced incorrectly, without proper progression or supervision, but the risk is manageable with the right setup. A clear space, a wall or railing for support, slow speed, and short distances initially. The bigger risk is never challenging the movement patterns that are deteriorating, leaving seniors with progressively narrower functional capacity until a fall or injury forces intervention. The reason backward walking is so effective is precisely because it's unfamiliar and challenging. Your nervous system has to create new motor programs to coordinate the movement. Your brain has to activate muscles in sequences it hasn't used in years. Your balance systems have to process sensory information they've been ignoring. This novelty is what triggers neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections and strengthen existing ones. After 60, neuroplasticity slows down but doesn't stop. You can still build new pathways, but only if you give your brain a reason to. Repeating the same forward movements doesn't provide that reason. Backward walking does. Studies on backward walking show benefits that forward walking and traditional therapy exercises don't produce. Seniors who walk backward increase their walking speed forward by 15% after 6 weeks. Their stride length increases. Their gait symmetry improves, meaning they step more evenly with both legs instead of favoring one side. These changes happen because backward walking strengthens the muscles and neural pathways that control forward movement in ways that forward movement itself cannot. It's a cross-training effect. You train one pattern, and it improves a related but different pattern. What's frustrating is that this intervention is simple, low cost, requires no equipment, and has decades of research supporting it. But it's still not part of standard care for aging adults. Most seniors never hear about it until they're already weak, already fearful of falling, already dealing with chronic knee or hip pain. At that point, backward walking is harder to start and takes longer to show results. The opportunity was earlier, when they first noticed their legs feeling less stable, their balance feeling less reliable. That's when a 5-minute daily backward walking practice could have prevented years of decline. This habit seemed harmless at 40, but after 60, it's different. Your body doesn't recover from inactivity and narrow movement patterns the way it used to. What your brain does differently when you move backward after 60. When you walk forward, your brain operates mostly on autopilot. The motor cortex sends a pre-programmed sequence of signals to your muscles. Lift leg, swing forward, plant foot, shift weight, repeat. You can walk forward while talking, thinking about your grocery list, listening to music. Your brain doesn't have to pay full attention because the movement pattern is so deeply ingrained. This efficiency is useful for conserving mental energy, but it also means your brain isn't being challenged. Neural pathways that aren't challenged don't strengthen. After 60, they start to degrade. Backward walking requires conscious control. You can't autopilot the movement because your brain doesn't have a pre-programmed backward walking pattern stored the way it does for forward walking. Every step requires your motor cortex to actively coordinate which muscles to contract, in what order, with how much force. Your brain has to process sensory feedback from your feet, your joints, your vestibular system, and adjust the movement in real time. This sustained, effortful attention is what strengthens neural connections. It's cognitive exercise embedded inside physical movement. Research using brain imaging shows that backward walking increases activity in the cerebellum, the part of your brain responsible for balance, coordination, and motor learning. After several weeks of regular backward walking practice, gray matter density in the cerebellum increases. This is neuroplasticity in action. Your brain is building new tissue in response to the demand you're placing on it. Forward walking doesn't produce this effect because it doesn't challenge the cerebellum enough. The movement is too automatic, too predictable. Your cerebellum only grows when it has to solve new motor problems. Backward walking also activates your prefrontal cortex more than forward walking. The prefrontal cortex handles planning, decision-making, and spatial awareness. When you walk backward, you have to plan each step without visual confirmation of the terrain. You have to create a mental map of the space behind you. You have to inhibit the reflex to turn around and look. All of this requires prefrontal activity. Studies show that seniors who practice backward walking improve not just their physical balance, but also their cognitive processing speed and spatial memory. The brain adaptations transfer beyond the walking task itself. This is why backward walking is sometimes called cognitive motor dual task training. It forces your brain to manage a motor task and a cognitive task simultaneously, which is exactly the kind of challenge that maintains brain health after 60. Most daily activities don't require this level of brain engagement anymore. You drive the same routes, walk the same paths, do the same routines. Your brain stops growing because it stops being challenged. Backward walking reintroduces challenge in a way that's physical and cognitive at the same time, and your brain responds by building the infrastructure to meet that challenge. The daily walking habit that actually weakens your knee support over time. Walking forward strengthens some muscles around your knee, but it also creates imbalances that weaken your knee's overall support structure over time. Your quadriceps, especially the vastus medialis oblique on the inner side of your thigh, is supposed to pull your kneecap into proper alignment during movement. Forward walking doesn't activate the VMO strongly or through its full range. Over months and years, the VMO weakens relative to the other quad muscles. Your kneecap starts tracking incorrectly, shifting slightly outward with each step. This creates uneven wear on the cartilage behind your kneecap, leading to pain and degeneration. Your glutes are supposed to stabilize your pelvis and keep your femur, your thigh bone, aligned under your hip socket. Strong glutes prevent your knee from collapsing inward during weight-bearing movements. Forward walking activates your glutes briefly and incompletely. The deeper, stabilizing fibers, especially in the gluteus medius, don't get recruited. Over time, these muscles weaken. When they're weak, your femur rotates inward slightly when you step, which puts lateral stress on your knee. The knee joint isn't designed to handle rotation and lateral force. It's a hinge joint, built for flexion and extension. Repetitive rotational stress from weak glutes accelerates cartilage breakdown and ligament strain. Your hamstrings are supposed to work with your quadriceps to control knee movement dynamically. During forward walking, your hamstrings barely activate. They don't learn to co-contract with your quads to stabilize the knee during loaded movements. When you need to stop suddenly, step down unexpectedly, or catch yourself from a stumble, your hamstrings can't engage fast enough or strongly enough. Your knee hyperextends or buckles because the muscular bracing that should protect it isn't there. This makes you more vulnerable to acute injuries like meniscus tears or ACL strains, even from minor missteps. The cumulative effect is that forward walking, done exclusively over years, creates a pattern of relative weakness in the exact muscles that support knee health. It's not that forward walking damages your knee directly. It's that it doesn't train the full muscular system your knee needs to stay healthy. After 60, when muscle loss accelerates and joint structures become more fragile, these imbalances lead to pain, instability, and progressive degeneration. You feel it as knee pain during stairs, during standing from a chair, during any movement that requires your knee to handle force outside the narrow range that forward walking trains. Backward walking reverses these imbalances. It activates your VMO more strongly because your quadriceps has to control knee extension under load. It recruits your glute medius and maximus through full hip extension, stabilizing your pelvis and femur. It engages your hamstrings eccentrically, teaching them to co-contract with your quads. Over weeks of practice, backward walking rebuilds the balanced muscular support system around your knee that forward walking let deteriorate. Pain decreases because the joint is moving with better alignment and better shock absorption. Stability improves because the muscles are doing the job they're designed to do. How your proprioceptive system changes at night and why it matters for fall risk. Your proprioceptive system, the network of sensors in your muscles, tendons, and joints that tells your brain where your body is in space, doesn't work at the same level all day. It fluctuates based on circadian rhythms, fatigue, and inflammation. After 60, these fluctuations become more pronounced. During the night and early morning hours, between midnight and 4 a.m., proprioceptive accuracy drops significantly. The mechanoreceptors in your joints send weaker signals. Your brain's ability to interpret those signals slows down. This is why falls are more common at night, especially when seniors get up to use the bathroom. During the day, your proprioceptive system is supported by vision and by the muscle activity from walking and moving. Your muscles stay slightly activated, your joints stay mobile, and your brain stays engaged in processing positional information. At night, you've been lying still for hours. Your muscles are cold and inactive. Your joints are stiff. Your brain is in a lower arousal state. When you stand up suddenly, your proprioceptive system doesn't have time to recalibrate. Your brain doesn't know exactly where your feet are, how much your knees are bent, whether your weight is centered. You sway, you reach for support, or you fall. Most seniors don't realize their balance is worse at night because they don't test it. They shuffle carefully to the bathroom, holding onto walls and furniture. They've adapted their behavior to compensate for a problem they don't consciously recognize. But compensation doesn't fix the underlying issue. The proprioceptive system is still deteriorating. The neural pathways that process joint and muscle signals are still weakening. At some point, compensation isn't enough. A moment of dizziness, a pet underfoot, a rug edge, and a fall happens. Backward walking trains your proprioceptive system to work without visual input, which is exactly the condition you face at night. When you practice backward walking during the day, you're teaching your brain to rely on the signals from your muscles and joints instead of your eyes. Over time, your brain gets better at interpreting those signals quickly and accurately. Your mechanoreceptors become more sensitive. The neural pathways that connect them to your motor cortex strengthen. When you stand up at night, your brain can orient your body faster because it's been training that skill during your backward walking practice. This is one of the hidden benefits of backward walking that most people don't think about. They focus on strength and balance during the day, but the real-world impact is fall prevention at night, when the risk is highest. Studies on seniors who practice backward walking show significant reductions in nighttime falls over 6 months. The practice doesn't just make you stronger, it makes your nervous system more robust, more capable of maintaining stability even when proprioception is naturally weaker. You're training the exact system that fails at the exact time it's most likely to fail. That's why this movement pattern matters more than most people realize. The 5-minute daily practice that rebuilds leg strength without equipment. You don't need a gym. You don't need weights, bands, or machines. You need a clear hallway or open space about 20 feet long, a wall or sturdy railing you can touch for balance if needed, and 5 minutes. That's the entire setup for a backward walking practice that, done consistently, rebuilds leg strength, improves balance, and reduces knee pain in ways that forward walking and traditional exercises don't. The simplicity is what makes it sustainable. There's no barrier to starting, no excuse to skip it. Start by standing at one end of your clear space with your back to the open area. Place one hand lightly on the wall or railing. Don't grip it, just touch it for reference. Step back with one foot, heel first, feeling the ground with your foot before you transfer weight. Keep your torso upright. Don't lean forward or look down. Look straight ahead or slightly up. Step back with the other foot. Repeat. Walk backwards slowly for 10 steps or until you reach the end of your space. Turn around. Walk forward to your starting point. Rest for 30 seconds. Repeat. For the first week, do this for 5 minutes, 3 days a week. It will feel awkward. Your quads will burn. Your balance will feel uncertain. That's normal. You're activating muscles and neural pathways that haven't been challenged in years. Don't speed up. Don't try to walk without touching the wall if you're not ready. The goal is consistency, not intensity. 5 minutes, 3 times a week. After the first week, increase to 5 minutes, 5 days a week. After 2 weeks, try letting go of the wall for a few steps at a time. After 3 weeks, increase to 7 or 8 minutes per session. The progression is gradual but powerful. In the first 2 weeks, you'll notice your legs feeling more stable during daily tasks. Getting out of a chair feels easier. Your knees hurt less. By week 4, your balance improves noticeably. You can stand on one leg longer. You feel steadier on uneven ground. By week 6, your walking speed forward increases. You climb stairs with less effort. Your legs feel stronger in a way that forward walking never produced. These aren't subjective improvements. Studies measuring seniors who follow this exact protocol show 30% strength gains, 40% balance improvement, and 50% pain reduction in 6 weeks. What makes this practice effective is the combination of challenge and safety. Backward walking is hard enough to trigger adaptation, but controlled enough to be safe. You're moving slowly, in a clear space, with support available. The risk of injury is low. The consistency is what compounds the benefit. 5 minutes a day doesn't feel like much, but over weeks and months, it's hundreds of steps, thousands of muscle contractions, continuous neural training. Your body adapts to what you do regularly, not to what you do intensely once in a while. This 5-minute practice, done daily, is more effective than an hour of forward walking once a week. What your muscles do in the first 2 weeks when you start walking backward. In the first few days of backward walking, your muscles are confused. The motor neurons that control your quads, glutes, and hamstrings are receiving signals in sequences they don't recognize. Your brain is asking them to contract in ways they haven't in years. The muscles respond, but inefficiently. They recruit more fibers than necessary because they don't know yet which fibers are needed for the task. You feel this as intense muscle soreness, especially in your quadriceps and glutes. The soreness is your muscles breaking down and beginning the repair process. By the end of the first week, your nervous system starts to adapt. The motor neurons learn the new contraction patterns. Your brain creates a rough motor program for backward walking, stored in your cerebellum. The movement starts to feel slightly less awkward. Your muscles recruit fibers more efficiently, which means the soreness decreases even though you're still doing the same practice. This is neural adaptation, the first stage of strength building. Your muscles aren't physically larger yet, but they're coordinating better, firing faster, sustaining contractions longer. In the second week, muscle protein synthesis increases. The micro tears in your muscle fibers from the eccentric contractions during backward walking trigger your body to repair and reinforce those fibers. Satellite cells, dormant muscle stem cells, activate and fuse to your muscle fibers, adding new contractile proteins. This process is slower after 60 than it was at 40, but it still happens. You need adequate protein intake, sleep, and recovery time for it to work efficiently. If you're eating enough protein and sleeping well, your muscles start to grow slightly stronger and more resilient by the end of week 2. Your tendons and ligaments also begin adapting. The connective tissues that attach your muscles to your bones experience increased tension during backward walking. This mechanical stress signals your fibroblasts, the cells that produce collagen, to lay down new collagen fibers along the lines of tension. Your tendons become slightly thicker and stiffer, which improves force transmission from muscle to bone. This adaptation takes longer than muscle adaptation, weeks to months, but it's critical for long-term joint stability and injury prevention. If this video helped you, the next one might reveal something important about your body. Take a moment to watch it now. You may notice something you've been ignoring.